It's not always the star of the show who deserves the attention. There's a lot of people behind the scenes who make country music work.
I can't believe they haven't figured out it's a puppet.
Welcome to another edition of Top 5 Tuesday, and yes, today we are talking about the folks that don't get the spotlight, the backup bands. Yes, every artist has a backup band that they tour with, that they record with. Who are the best of the best, though, when it comes to backing bands in country music? That's what we're going to look at today. At number 5, the Ace in the Hole Band. This is George Strait's backing band. They actually got together in the mid-70s when they were all at college together. This is Ron Cabal, Terry Hale, Mike Daly, Bill Mabry, and Tommy Foote. They got together. Their original lead singer, Jay Dominguez, though, he decided that music wasn't going to be for him. He left the group. They needed a new lead singer, and that's when they found a kid going to the same school as them named George Strait. He became their new lead singer, and then when his solo career started to take off, he took his buddies with him. They've been his backup band ever since. So for almost 40 years of touring and recording with George Strait, you got to give it up for the Ace in the Hole Band, one of the best in country. They're at number 5. At number 4, Ernest Tubb's Texas Troubadours, a group that gave him quite the unique sound back in the 1940s. You knew when it was Ernest Tubb, and he was one of the biggest stars of the era. A lot of that credit has to go to his backup band, who continued to provide him with some of the best musicians in Nashville. From his producer, Owen Bradley, who is on the piano and the keyboards, to Jack Green, who played guitar, would go on to have a very successful solo career as well, as would another one of his guitar players, Cal Smith. He was a member of the Troubadours. They also had guys like Leon Rhodes and Buddy Emmons. So much great talent behind him for his entire run. The Texas Troubadours behind Ernest Tubb, they're at number 4. At number 3, the Hot Band, Emmylou Harris's backup band from 1974 until 1991. Her record company said that they would record her, but they needed a hot band behind her, thus how they got their name. She went out and found an absolute treasure trove of musicians, starting with James Burton and Glenn Hardin. These two guys had both been in Elvis's backing band for a while. They had backed up Graham Parsons. Glenn Hardin had been with the Crickets for a time. James Burton had played with Ricky Nelson, so they had tons of experience in the country and rock and roll worlds, and they were absolutely perfect for the band that she needed. She needed some fire in that hot band. She also brought on a young Texas songwriter named Rodney Crowell. He would go on to have his great solo career. When he left the hot band, as a matter of fact, he was replaced by Ricky Skaggs, so the talent level never dropped. The hot band, one of the hottest in country music, and they remain one of the best backing bands of all time. They're at number 3. At number 2, the legendary Tennessee 3, Johnny Cash's backing band. When you think the early days of Johnny Cash, that boom chicka boom freight train style, it is because of the 3 men behind him. And how did they get to be the Tennessee 3? Well, it actually kind of started while Johnny was away in the Air Force. He was serving in Germany in the mid-50s. His brother had opened up an auto repair shop in Memphis, Tennessee, and he employed a trio of mechanics, Red Kernoodle, Marshall Grant, and Luther Perkins. They would bring their guitars to work, and when times were slow, they would sit and play. They got to really enjoy playing together and singing together, and when Johnny got back from his stint in the military, he met those 3. They all started playing together, had a pretty good foursome going, and decided to make a go of it as a band. When they went to Sun Record Studios and went in, that's when Kernoodle started to get cold feet. He said, I feel like I'm bringing the rest of these guys down. I'm going to step back. I'm leaving. So he left the session. That left Johnny Cash alone with Luther Perkins and Marshall Grant. They walked in and Johnny said, we are the Tennessee 3. Sam Phillips right away said, I don't like that idea. I think it's going to be Johnny Cash and the Tennessee 2. And that is how they started until they added drummer W.S. Fluke Holland. He really added that backbeat that you needed for the freight train style and was considered one of the first country music drummers, one of the absolute best of all time. And he stayed with Johnny right until Johnny's passing in 2003. His drummer was always W.S. Fluke Holland. Luther Perkins, of course, passing away in 1968 in a very infamous house fire, and Marshall Grant staying on as his bass player until 1980 when he left to go manage the Statler Brothers. But the Tennessee 3, big components in the Johnny Cash sound. They've got to be included on this list. They're at number 2. At number 1, Buck Owens and his Buckaroos. Now, as important as the Tennessee 3 were to making the Johnny Cash sound, the Buckaroos were important in making the Bakersfield sound, a brand new sound in country music that came from one group and kind of splintered off into another, and you'll see what I mean. Who made up the Buckaroos? Well, the band leader was Don Rich, who unfortunately passed away in 1974 at the age of 32 in a motorcycle accident, but his contributions to the Buckaroos and to Buck Owens' career are monumental. Don Rich was an incredible guitar player, had a great great eye and ear for music to figure out new sounds and new ways of doing things, was a great band member and the leader of the Buckaroos. Also in that band, Doyle Hawley, Tom Brumley, Willie Cantu, and for a brief period, Merle Haggard. Yes, Merle Haggard was a Buckaroo until he went off and did his own solo work with his backing band, The Strangers. They continued on that Bakersfield sound, but it all starts with Buck Owens and the Buckaroos changing the way things were done in country music. My number one backing band in country history. Thanks so much for tuning in to this week's edition of Top 5 Tuesday. We'll be back next week with more.